In this episode, we talk to art historian Dr. Becky Black and unpack the impact one small object might have made in history and consider what the object has witnessed. We encourage listeners to reflect on everyday objects that might become historical artifacts. Welcome to Social Objects, the podcast where we dive into the lives and shared stories of the objects we make, use, and cherish.
All right. Well, welcome to this episode of Social Objects. I'm Dr. Medill, and joining us today is Dr. Black. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Dr. Becky Black, Chair of Liberal Arts at RimCAD.
Perfect. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background, what you do at RimCAD for those listening?
No.
Okay, great. Great. This is great.
I am an art historian. At RimCAD, I, as Chair of Liberal Arts, manage the department and do a lot of campus tours of our campus history. Yeah.
And how long have you been with RimCAD?
I've been with RimCAD since August of 2019.
Wow, it's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. All right. If you don't mind giving us a little bit of info about the object you brought in today, let us know what it is. I will have an image of it on the screen, of course, through editing magic.
Okay, so I don't need to show it?
Well, you can also show it.
This is my object. It is a 1st century Roman, I can't say this word, so I'm going to say it slow. Sestertius. No, sestertius. A Roman coin that is not a denari or denarius, rather. It is bronze. It used to be quite shiny and golden looking, but of course, thousands of years have made it green. So on one side, on the front side, is Emperor Hadrian. And on the reverse side is an image of one of his allegedly imperial galley ships.
Oh, nice.
Going along the ocean.
And how did you get this object? What did you plunder? Where did you go?
You know me, I am a plunderer. I actually got this, and why it's still so special to me, I got it from my undergraduate advisor, who was also my art history professor as an undergrad for all except one of my art history courses. She is an Italian Renaissance scholar. Shout out to Dr. Azer Rajai. And so she goes to Italy every summer. And she knew that I, at that moment in my life, was very interested in Emperor Hadrian as being the first sort of out gay emperor. I didn't quite know about all the racism and other things until much later, but she knew that that was of interest to me. And so she bought me this coin on one of her trips to Italy. And I've had it ever since. I think I got it in 2008, 2009.
Wow. That's so cool.
Oh, hey, it's Kat from the future. I wanted to make a connection to Dr. Berg's episode, or episode 1, where we talked about the flamboyance of flamingos. And if you remember, Dr. Berg suggested that you find a mentor. And I wanted to point out that we're seeing that emerge again in our chat with Dr. Black or Becky. So take this as your sign to reach out to someone you admire or who does work you admire and see how y'all can connect.
So this is my section where I've done a little bit of Googling and researching. So I have some fun facts for you about 1st century AD Roman coins. Which you probably know, but it was very exciting for me. And yes, I use these interviews as a way to go down my own rabbit holes. So like you mentioned, they were, well, you didn't mention, but you kind of alluded to that they might have been used for imperial propaganda. So they weren't just money. They were tools for emperors to spread their image, virtues, and achievements across the vast empire. Then we can talk about the faces of power. So the front of the coins, like you showed us, they feature the portrait of an emperor or a member of the imperial family, often with specific hairstyles or symbols that tell a story. Can you tell us about the hair? How's the hair looking?
Yeah, he's looking good. He's got a nice little coif. So Emperor Hadrian is known as part of the bearded emperors. And for quite some time, allegedly, representations of Hadrian's were confused with representations of Marcus Aurelius, who really made the imperial beard popular in Roman history. But Hadrian's predecessor, Trajan, had a small beard at one point. But yeah, we've got his trademark beard. Again, this is not Marcus Aurelius, it is Hadrian. And he's wearing the laurel leaf crown to denote his fanciness to that propaganda point. And he also had quite curly hair. So we can see his curly hair there too.
Very nice. The other fun fact I came across, and maybe you can let us know if this is real or not, but through what I saw in my very, very vast research, was that the back of the coins can often depict gods, allegorical figures like peace or victory, military scenes, or buildings to all reinforce the emperor's message and commemorate important events.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Very cool.
There was in my research, and I didn't start researching this coin until very recently, just because ancient Rome is not like my academic interest really at all. I'm not one of those the recent, I don't know, meme or whatever was viral, like how often do you think of the Roman Empire? Never, except for when I see this coin. So I did do a little more research on it for this conversation. And what's on the back of this, again, is probably the imperial galley, kind of like a Greek trireme. Emperor Hadrian loved Greek culture. He tried to make everything as Greek as possible. So this is very much a Greek style ship. And it is said to commemorate what is known as Hadrian's Great Tour, which is just really a 5-year period towards the end of his reign, where he was traveling all over. This is where he goes into Judea and slaughters a bunch of Jewish inhabitants. But it is also argued that that ship, yes, it's propaganda for Hadrian, but it's also kind of like a backhanded insult against him because of his short reign from like 117 to I think 138 is his reign. About 22 years of it weren't spent in Rome. He was all over. He was in Britain, he was in Judea, he was in Egypt. And so he was criticized a lot for not being around. And so some scholars have proposed that that galley ship is a sort of a backhanded compliment, insult, etc.
So the shade was real even
Yes,
even back
Roman
then.
shade.
I love that. Okay, so one of the other questions, this might be interesting, and you've touched on it a little bit, but how has your specific object been a witness to your life or the lives of others?
That's a really good question, Kat. Well, I did get it when I was an undergrad and very eager to go to grad school and very eager to be Dr. Isaiah Rajai Jr., art historian extraordinaire. And so it's gone with me through every move to grad school, to PhD. Fun story, when I was moving to Memphis to start my MA at the University of Memphis, and of course, Memphis is where I'm from, a friend helped me move, and this friend drives slower than a grandma. However, while we were on I-40 in Arkansas, somewhere between Texarkana and Little Rock, I think, this coin in its little case was in a tub that was on top of his car. And even though he was going like 2 miles an hour, the tub flew off. And so all the contents were all over I-40. And somehow I still managed to find this coin on the side of the road on I-40. So it's meant to be with me.
Totally. Yeah. And from an art history perspective, we're gonna like play make believe for a second.
Okay.
What do you think our lives would be like? Like, how would we come into contact with this coin when it was first minted?
Ooh, I've thought about that a lot over the years, actually, especially with this being a coin of Emperor Hadrian in particular, and we know he is responsible for building that wall,
Hmm.
separates England from Scotland to keep the barbarians out of the new Roman Britannia. And as someone, and you and I have talked about this, someone of British Isle descent, most prominently, um, like these coins, especially these larger bronze ones, not the small silver denarii.
Hmm.
I mean, these were used for everyday commerce. They were used to pay soldiers. And as we know, the Romans practiced slavery. And no doubt a coin like this would have paid for perhaps one of my own Celtic ancestors in a Roman slavery fort situation.
Hmm.
Maybe not, but likely. Maybe this paid for Hadrian's great tour. Maybe it bought a goat. Maybe it did all the things.
He
I
did it
don't.
all.
It probably did do all the things. Because this was like the currency at this particular moment in Roman history. Of course, the denarii and this one that starts with an S, like traded places a lot depending on the emperor and what the value was. But at this point in sort of Iron Age British history, the
Mhm.
Roman occupation was quite large, and Hadrian himself actually had coins struck that were just for Britain.
Oh, wow.
So maybe this wasn't one of those specific coins with the, as you mentioned, goddesses, etc.
Mm.
Britannia was on the reverse of one of Hadrian's coins that was struck for Britain in particular. So I think it's probably saw this coin, used this coin quite frequently.
Hmm. And do you know, I'm going to go back to the idea of the how your advisor acquired it. You said she just picked it up like at a shop, or are these
Mhm.
contemporarily people can just buy these as trinkets?
Yes. I mean, she's always told me, and it stays with me, even when I visited Rome and Florence with her several years ago. Like art history and history are just everywhere. You trip over it
Hmm.
in those cities, especially Rome and Florence, where tourists are everywhere. And so, yeah, I mean, there was regulations on coin striking and minting are not what we know them to be today.
Hmm.
And so there are like over 20 versions, I think I read somewhere, of this particular coin with him on the front. And I know you can't really see it, but on the ship, on my coin, there are 6 rowers.
Hmm.
On most of the other galley Hadrian coins, there's only 5 rowers, or maybe there's 4 rowers, or the ship is going the other way. And so, yeah, these are essentially like a dime a dozen, at
Okay.
least in 2008. But in looking online for more information, I mean, I've seen prices range from $2,700 down to $5
Oh, okay. So it just depends.
for a Hadrian coin. Yeah.
Okay. No, like trips being sponsored by the coin, but
No.
maybe someday.
Maybe
Maybe.
to the right buyer.
Brain buyer. I'm also interested from your perspective because you're an art historian. I know you are great at research, you love researching. Are there any things about your object that you feel are overlooked or missing in the research you've done?
Yeah, for sure. Um, just the study of coinage in general.
Hmm.
When I teach the Warrior Queens class, and you've contributed by sending me those coins from Egypt, like we talk about coinage, especially during the time of Boudica in Britain, um, and just how, like you mentioned, that these were pieces of propaganda, like all visual culture.
Hmm.
Um, they are low relief sculpture. Like they are art and visual culture. They are so understudied. They are studied by like collectors, of course, but for the monetary value is what I've noticed.
Hmm.
The art historical value, no. I've looked at scholarly articles about Roman coinage, and they're interesting, but it's more like I mean, we're not arguing anything other than this is worth this if it's from this period of his reign.
Mm-hmm.
And so the emphasis on monetary value of money, I think, is problematic
Yeah.
for ancient
Ironic.
times at least.
That is wild to think about. So that's a whole new, if anyone listening out there needs something to research or dive into,
Right.
money.
And then, like, who designed them? There's
Yeah.
no.
We don't know.
It's kind of like Greek pottery, where the potter gets no credit. It's all about the painter. And here, the makers, the designers get no credit. It's all about who's on the coin. That,
Mm-hmm.
like, he didn't make this, but whomever did, that that's some intentional design, and some of them less so in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the quality of design work. But yeah, who designed them? Who minted them? Who
Mm-hmm.
struck them?
That's wild to think about. And this is going to show how ignorant I am. Do we know that about, like, and I don't expect you to know this answer, but you probably do. Do we know that about contemporary currency? Like, I'm thinking about, like, bills now, but I couldn't tell you who designed what.
Yeah, I think, like, the Buffalo nickel, we know who designed it. The head of Roosevelt for the dime, we know who designed it.
Mhm.
And I think both of those were like competitions or something. But like the bills, I have no idea. And then you may remember recently when the design of the US quarters changed,
Yeah.
like individual state quarters or whatever. Like, I know we have, like, the designers of those are documented. But other than that, no,
It is, yeah.
those artists go unnamed.
I'm like spiraling a little bit here thinking about that because you're
I
right.
know, and it's such an important object.
Mhm.
You would think we'd write that down or make it public or something. But
Yeah, and then I'm thinking about one of my other research interests, right, being street art and this idea of art and material culture outside of institutional spaces.
mhm.
And currency is so, like, when you think about the lived experience of objects can live, right? Like when we talked about what did they move through, it's wild because you would never take a painting out of a museum and, like, put it in your backpack and walk around with it, right? But
Mm,
the potential to learn about a culture or community is just as prevalent in that piece as it would be in a museum space, and maybe even more so in that it's not curated, right? It's this
yeah.
informal exchange or this informal interaction of something. Um, yeah, so that's what's going to keep me up tonight.
Yeah,
Thinking
as it
about.
should.
Thanks for that. I
Yeah, I love to bring this in for students. When we talk about Caesar putting his face on a Roman coin and then shortly thereafter was assassinated.
Mhm,
That's like an art history conspiracy theory. But I like pass it around, touch it, look
mhm,
at it. I have a little glass they can use. Um, and actually, Lucas came in the other day and it's sitting on my desk. So when you sit down to talk to me, it's right here.
mhm.
And he was like, "Are you sure I can touch?" So I'm like, "Yeah, it's it's made it to my desk. It can't be that expensive." Um, but the idea of, and I bring it to students and I offer it to other instructors here on ground, because the idea that someone from like 129
Yeah,
CE
yeah,
held this, someone from 1337 CE held this, used it, like this is, yeah, you're closer to history with this one coin than you are going to see the Mona Lisa at the Louvre.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that speaks also when we think about, like, art history or making of art, the idea of, like, scale. And I to kind of touch on, you mentioned the coins I brought back from Egypt and, like, going to Egypt, miraculous, right? And you think of, or I think of when I'm trying to learn about history or, like, be at the place where it happened, right? Like, I have
Mhm.
this need to, like, be in the geographic location where it happened, and it is phenomenal. But the scale of those things is significant, right? Like, in terms of budget, in terms of getting there,
Mhm.
transportation. And you really are blowing my mind here when I'm thinking about the importance of or how things are overlooked that are smaller in terms of scale, right? Like, again, like a coin's quite small. Pyramids, people are like, yeah, I want to see that. That's important. But you're right. There's something about this utilitarian component of something that I don't know. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Does it take away its value as an artistic object, right?
Yeah, I think in the case of coins, our friend Walter Benjamin would agree. Like they're so reproduced
Mm-hmm.
over millennia that maybe they have lost their value in terms of scale of importance because there's just so many,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we keep finding more and more and more. Every year there's another hoard of coins found from some ancient culture. And so I think, yes, unfortunately, these smaller objects of visual culture, and don't get me started on visual culture at large, not being considered as important as these monumental works, right?
Mm.
Um, so I don't know how to address that as an art historian, as an art history educator, other than to, keep talking about them and bring them in when you have them available, because like, I'll probably never see the pyramids. That's unfortunate, but like I have a piece of history here
Mm-hmm.
that is just as valuable in terms of its educational content,
Mm-hmm.
sparking imagination, right? Like thinking about all the people who have touched that, and I'm holding it, right? I'll never be able to hold the pyramid, so I can't have that connection, and
Totally.
students can't have that connection. So there's a positive, I think, to something like this being so easily reproducible.
Mm-hmm.
Relatively speaking, I don't know how easy it is to strike a bronze coin, but there's thousands. So I don't know. It's like art for the masses.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me mad that it's money because the Marxist in me is like, dang it, painting should be just as reproducible.
Right? The I don't know, everything we're taught and yeah, spiraling. Anyway,
Mhm.
in terms of the coin, has it kind of influenced to talk about like your teaching and in the classroom? Has your specific coin influenced your perspective on how you approach art history, how you teach it?
Yeah, I think so, especially in that Warrior Queens class. And I haven't been teaching it that long. I think 2022 was my first go at it.
Yep.
Um, and lecture-based courses they're boring. They're really boring. But like when we were in elementary school, show and tell,
Yeah.
heck yeah.
Yeah.
And I started bringing my coin in, honestly, because of perhaps a future guest you will have, and her mummy hand, and just seeing the students' response to, like, wow, that is centuries right in front of me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're less impressed by the coin than your future guest's object that I won't spoil here. But still, like knowing that they're holding something, maybe even Hadrian held it. Who knows? Like it just, I think it sparks curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in teaching right now, sparking curiosity is one of the most difficult things that we are tasked with.
Mm-hmm.
You got me started on higher education, but like it's so focused on like get a job, here are the skills you need to get a job, and we just don't spend enough time trying to cultivate curiosity in our students. And that's, I would assume that's how we got to where we are, is just being curious and taking in even the smallest things. And so the coin has changed my interest from lecture topics more focused on history of propaganda through coins, etc. Yeah, and to looking into more about this one.
Mm-hmm. I'm struck by, you kind of touched on the idea of higher education, and as instructors, one of the things we're encouraged to do is help prepare students, right, for the real world. And I'm interested, I have a question for you, but I'm interested to see if you think what we're going to talk about based off of this question supports that idea of preparing people
Okay.
for the real world, their jobs, or if it's kind of through this thread of like creativity. So 2025, I would argue, right, it's the era of TikTok, quick trends, fast fashion, all of these things. And when I think about this series and this podcast and asking people to bring in material objects, I'm asking each guest, why do they think it's important to hold on to physical objects? Is that something that can serve us? I mean, it can be personally in terms of our own lived experiences or in terms of like a career or, is there value or what is the value in physical objects in 2025?
That's a good question. Hmm. I mean, for me, yes. And I would think most art historians would agree there's value in the physical object. I mean, you go to a museum to see a piece that you've only seen on a lecture slide, it changes it for you, right? That physical experience. And you can't get like have you ever heard of the Stendhal effect?
Mm-mm.
So there's this like French guy, I think, 1800s, I don't know, 1700s, whatever. Um, and I can't even remember if he was real. I don't think he was real, but some other French guy wrote about this guy as if he was real. And the Stendhal effect is essentially when you are standing in front of a magnificent work of art, was his example.
Mm-hmm.
You just get so overcome by emotion. You start crying, whatever. And I don't think that's as possible with just images on a screen. I
Mm-hmm.
sound like an old lady saying that. But there is something about the physicality of an object, right? Again and again, I keep going back to I'm holding this thing that
Mm-hmm.
a Roman soldier held
Mm-hmm.
thousands of years ago. You like, if I'm just holding my screen, that's not the same.
Yeah.
I don't, and I don't think it sparks as much curiosity. It's like seeing like sculpture in the round is more engaging physically, emotionally, mentally than a relief sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
I argue. Um, so I do think there is a place for objects in 2025. I don't know if that's like a generational thing, if it's an art historian thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the other object I mentioned maybe for this podcast was the clock that my mom got from my dad when they were still married.
Mm-hmm.
And I've carried that clock with me since she passed. She carried it with her even after her divorce from my dad in 1982, after her divorce from her second husband. It was on the wall in her third husband's house. And it wasn't because it was from my dad. It was something about this clock held meaning for my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with my coin. Like, yeah, there are a dime a dozen and there are thousands of them, but I guess the history of this particular coin found its way to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so a photo just I wouldn't care.
Yeah, totally. And
But I'm also old.
you're not that. Don't tell me that.
We grew up, perhaps me more so, without screens, right? Without seeing every bit of daily life online at some point. So I don't know. Is that part of it? Is that just being a curmudgeon? I don't know. Like, you should do a longitudinal study.
Yeah, I will add that to my list on it. Done. Longitudinal. No, I mean, I agree with you. I think I sit with the idea a lot of, your perception of reality
Mhm.
being tied to the time and place in which you're dropped, right? Like we have
Right.
control over when we enter this timeline. So the experiences and then to you and I kind of committing ourselves to the field of art, visual culture, art history, all of that as a form of documenting these changes, we're reflecting as much as at the same time we're kind of not like projecting, but we're trying to stay up to date with what's happening in the contemporary culture, right? And so there's a lot of different processes happening, right? Like we're understanding, okay, this is what it was then, and now it's morphing into this. What does that say about us now, right? So it's like we're moving on this timeline back and forth, and this, I guess, is turning into my plug for everybody to become art historians. But I think that's what really excites me or one of the aspects that excites me about art history as a platform or as a space is we're allowed to kind of like time travel, right? Like into the
Yes.
past, into the future. We're allowed to think, or not allowed to, we're encouraged to think critically about all those things, right? It's not,
Mhm.
I'm going to go on a tangent really quick.
Dude, I'm ready.
It's not, and I know I make this joke about like having to memorize dates and titles and images. And I tell students like that's how I got my first degree because I'm good at memorizing. I probably need to stop doing that, but also the perception of art historians in like media, right? I don't know if you've noticed this, but like I think about Mona Lisa smiles and it was she's just doing slides with them, right? But then she's like, okay, we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna question it, right? And that whenever I saw that, I don't know how old I was, that blew my mind. But at the same time, I don't know. You can see I'm struggling with I've been told for so long that art history is part of its role is to conserve or preserve our history. And I don't know how we got here, but we got here. How do we do that ethically, right? Like you're talking about this history of the scale of a small object that was made, reproduced a lot, right?
Mhm.
But how do we take all that information from just one small thing and make it accessible, make it ethical, make it understandable, right? Like I think I get overwhelmed sometimes by the volume of things in the world.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know that there is an ethical way. We'd have to change our definition of ethical
Mhm.
and responsible, right? Because like how did this coin come to last so long? Someone likely stole it from somewhere or I don't know. And now am I the owner of stolen property?
Mm.
Probably, technically, but I didn't have anything to do with it. But I'm preserving it and using it to teach other students. So I don't think there's a way to like negate one with the other. Like the educational benefits of a stolen object don't make it unstolen. Um yeah, so I don't think there's an ethical way. And like we're constantly digging for
Mhm.
more. Not me personally. But archaeologists do that in class. I'm like, and then we found, I'm like, I didn't do any of it. I saw it in a book. Um,
I was there.
yeah, archaeologists are constantly digging, right?
Mhm.
And the act of digging and disturbing the earth in itself could be argued as unethical based on your understanding of the earth and our relationship to it. Not to mention, most of what we're digging in are graves
Yeah.
globally. So, like, anything past a certain age is certainly going to be probably most likely unethically found.
Mhm.
Uh, Even if it is on like a university sponsored archaeological dig where you have all the bells and whistles, you're still digging into someone's grave.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know how I got to digging in graves.
Yeah, no, I don't know how I was talking smack about Mona Lisa smile. Oh,
Oh yeah.
I'm pivoting back. I wanted to get your perspective on this. So my understanding of art historians in like social media, right, is Julie Roberts
Yeah,
or
yeah.
um oftentimes I'm trying to think of a concrete example. I can't, but I know there's oftentimes like in films or like little mini drama series, like wealthy people, right? Like the wife's, oh, I studied art history, right? Or um I feel like we're represented as either we're like wealthy old white ladies, which would love to be that, but not the reality, or you're like what's his name? Nicolas Cage in National Treasure, like going on these adventures, right? There's kind of that overlap of archaeology and art history, but I don't think there's like a solid representation of like who we are, right? Have you seen any character representation anywhere?
No. However, maybe. I mean, Wonder Woman, but she serves more as like a in the I think it was the first Wonder Woman. with Gal Gadot, not Linda Carter.
Okay.
She's Diana Prince is working at the Louvre, I believe, and she claims to be an art historian, but when we see her, she is like doing conservation work on a sculpture,
Yeah.
and that's what we do.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole different field, science and math,
Whole different degree.
chemistry, whole
Yep.
different set of degrees. Um, uh, and I mean, she's a mythological character, so I guess that's like a rich white woman. Those are mythological characters in the art history world. I would say that's probably the closest, but yeah, I agree. If it's like in the field of art history, you're either like an Indiana Jones guy archaeologist type, or you're Mona Lisa smile. I'm just doing this
Yeah.
until I get married and
Yep.
have books on my shelf.
Had to get a degree, so it's this, which like no shade, right? But also a little bit of shade because we do so much more. So I'm going to pivot to if you could design
Hmm.
the archetype of an art historian, what would they be like? Tell me about them.
Like, how specific are we getting here?
As specific as you want. Like, they're a Gemini,
They probably are Scorpio. They probably have brown hair, wear glasses, wear cool art history t-shirts. I don't know. We're also different. Not to be one of those people, but in my dissertation, uh, which focused on student perceptions of their art history instructors and vice versa.
Mhm.
In my research for that, I had to read a lot about perceptions of artists, perceptions of art teachers. And I mean, TBH, art historians in the research for decades have been white women.
Mhm.
If you look at any university website for their art historians, it's predominantly white women.
Mhm.
And one particular author, I want to say it was 2012, they said this, the arts have always been associated with women because they are acts of creation and take
Mhm.
nurturing and all that other BS. And I think there's something to be said there. I don't know what it is. I don't necessarily agree with it, but there is a little nugget
Mhm.
there. The ideal art historian, I don't know. I think the ideal human would be non-binary, super curious,
Mhm.
and wealthy.
And a Gemini.
Scorpio.
Scorpio. Got it. I'm not even a Gemini. Plot twist.
Nice.
All right. So one of my, final questions for you, and we're going to go along this vein of museums and institutional curation. So if this coin were placed in a museum exhibition of personal histories of objects, what caption or interpretive text would you write for it?
That's too much. Hey, look at my coin. I don't know. I think it would be like those Kirkham labels
Hmm.
that ask the viewer questions
Hmm.
more than give information. I mean, give a little bit. First century Emperor Hadrian,
Hmm.
but maybe like the question that I keep bringing up, like who else has held this coin?
Hmm.
Who else do you imagine using this coin in centuries past, and for what purposes?
Hmm.
One purpose, but what purposes? Because like, you think about the money in your pocket when we had monies in our pockets, right? Like you get a quarter from Burger King, and then you'd use that same quarter at Walmart, or you know what I mean? So like maybe ask the visitor to do a visual representation, or at least think about all the possibilities that this coin has been through. Whose hands has it been through? I think that'd be cool.
I agree. I think that'd be really cool. You sparked one final question for me. As we progress, because we've talked about the timeline, we've talked about currency being this, representation of visual culture that can teach us things like just as much as formal higher art or whatever we want to call it from museums,
I would say even more in some cases.
even more. But as we progress and we become less and less currency, I guess, hard currency, not driven, but right, like we're tapping more and we're carrying coins less, right? And there's some countries that
Yeah.
have complete systems where you don't have any cash. Like, what are your kind of predictions for the future of currency as a form of visual culture?
Wow. I don't know. I've never thought about that. I don't think I don't carry coins really at all anymore. Because I'm not a pirate. Um, I mean, are you talking like coins like this one, like ancient, or are you thinking like coins in our pockets right now?
I think in our pockets right now, like what are people in 200 years going to have,
Mhm.
what kind of, material culture are they going to have, right? We're getting rid of coins. There's kind of not a push, but you think about the use of like video in contemporary art, right? We're moving away from this tangibleness of culture. Like, what do you think
Hmm.
people in the future are going to have? The future uses. What are art historians in 300 years going to be referencing?
QR codes. Uh, credit cards. I mean, like surely
Yeah.
they're going to evolve. You can already like pick your own images to put on your credit cards.
Mhm.
Um, they're already, they've already changed so much, I guess, from going, where they were very tactile with the raised numbers to just flat now. I think coins, I think coins will always be a collector's item, even coins of today. I mean, just think about all those commercials you see primarily on particular channels that have an older generation as their primary audience, and buy gold. Gold is the safest, and
Mhm.
wheat pennies now, minimum of 5 per customer. Um, and so I think and I'm not insulting that by any means, but I think coins will stay, not as currency per se, but as bits of visual culture that have been democratized so much throughout their history that they are collector's items. I mean, whole industries around coin collecting, as we know. We don't really use stamps anymore, but stamps are still
Mhm.
hot commodities, right? The older the better, of course. So I think coins will stick around. Paper money? I don't know. Is
God,
it even paper?
who needs her?
I don't know. Maybe. Um, yeah. Yeah. The purpose of the coins will change, but I don't think they're going anywhere.
Fair enough.
And I
Okay.
think it's because of that need for an object. And
Mm.
it's the perfect size. It's portable, small, with high value. What do I know?
Well, I mean, we'll just have to do a follow-up interview in 300 years and just see.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's,
Just give me a call.
that's the
I'll
plan.
be here in my office waiting.
With your coin. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I
Yeah,
hope,
this was fun.
yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed listening.
Yay.